is a very important person, and he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for an interview many moons ago, and I can remember very well because I was one of the 2 people on the interview panel. How many years ago would it be? Okay, 15 years ago. And there was we were doing about 12 interviews in an afternoon, and one of them came up, and on his UCAS form was all about his canoeing, and we said, why Nottingham? The standard question. And he said, well, it has to be Nottingham. I have no choice because this is what I want to do, and I'm very keen, and I'm very, this is the best place in the country, and I want to be in the best place in the country, and the medical school's the best one, etc., etc. This guy sounds very good, very genuine. Let's give him a place. And so that's how Tim arrived at the medical school. And then later on, he was enabled, I shan't give you too many details because they'll probably be discussed later, but enabled to do part-time medical training as a student, which is very unusual, in order to facilitate his training. And that's what's enabled him to get to where he's got now. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Tim.
Thank you. So you know who to blame if this is a terrible talk. Firstly, I thought I should start with a couple of apologies. One, apologies if it is a terrible talk, because you come all the way here to come and listen to me. And the other apology is that those of you that were here the other week for the 40th anniversary, some of the slides are the same. So if there's a bit of repetition there, but I've got a lot more here today. I thought I'd talk about a bit my journey through medical school, journey through as an Olympic athlete, and what it's like a bit of the time after you become an Olympic champion. I've got a few videos in here and other bits and pieces to sort of carry you through the journey, and at the end there'll be an opportunity to ask any questions if you have any. So sprint kayak racing, what is it? Not many people have heard of kayak racing. In Nottingham you think of canoeing, kayaking, and you going down the rapids and Eskimo rolls and this sort of thing. It's slightly different. What I do, I'm a sprinter, so I race over 1,000 metres and 500 metres, very narrow boats, sort of as widest point as where your hips are, and you get just flat out 9 lanes, heat semis and finals, first past the post is the winner. And what does it take to be good? We come from a nation where sprint kayaking, we were very poor at it for many, many years. Our last world champion in the sport was 20 years ago, until I managed to achieve it again. In 1987, when I started paddling, a little scrawny 11-year-old, the club I started at had a majority of Olympic athletes going to the various Olympics. So in 1988, I saw people at my canoe club who I'd been seeing out on the water training going off to the Seoul Olympics. And I saw them on television, and they came back, and looking at them wearing their kit, telling the stories, talking about the Olympic Games and what it was like. And there's me, as by then a sort of 11, 12-year-old, looking at these guys thinking that's a realistic ambition for me at one stage to be an Olympic athlete. But what I had to do to achieve that was to make a change. We weren't winning medals at games, we weren't winning medals at world championships. And my coach came along 16 years ago now and started coaching me, and his philosophy of things was change. A few years later he gave me a little video clip, which I'll show you now, that's got a voiceover from a film. I'm not even sure which film it's from, just talking about change, and there's some images of sort of paddling and what we do and training and things.
You see, I know change. I see change, I embody change. All we do is change. Yeah, I know change. We're born to change. We sometimes regard it as a metaphor that reflects the way things ought to be. In fact, change takes time. It exceeds all expectations. It requires both now and then. See, although the players change, the song remains the same. And the truth is, you've got to have the balls to change.
So that's a bit about sprint training, the sort of things we do. It looks quite monotonous there on the water all the time. A bit later on, I've got some videos of some of the other sorts of training we do. A couple of things from that video there. There's an image from Sydney, and one of the guys you may have noticed, an Australian guy, was in a pink boat. He's now in prison for importing and making ecstasy tablets. So he went from Olympic champion to prison dweller now. Does anybody know who this is? This guy, I doubt very much, I'd be very surprised other than those who may have been at another talk. St Francis de Sales, and he was a patron of my school I went to, Salesian College, and he had a saying about each of us having a better self, and we should make that better self the norm, the standard by which we try to live day by day. And that's something that's instilled in us at school, and something that we try to use on a daily basis to try and push ourselves at school to make sure we're better. And it wasn't a posh school at all. It was a very difficult school to be at, because I was the only one there that had any kind of aspirations of going to university really and becoming a doctor, and our football pitch was on a slope, so we had no cricket, no tennis, no rugby, nothing like that, just a bit of football on a slope and occasional basketball, and so hence I found my sport far more enjoyable. So being a good athlete, is it nature or nurture? I don't come from a family of Olympic athletes, Olympic champions. They're a very musical family and a very sort of scientific, academic kind of family, no doctors. In the beginning, when I was born, I'm pretty sure this fat little baby wasn't ever thought it was ever going to become anything other than a big fat adult. Again, my parents' sense of dress was rather interesting. They got me training at a young age, and thankfully I don't still tuck my tie into my trousers, but maybe infection control would think that's a good idea. But it's training is what makes a difference. We talked about the change. We had to change the way we were doing things, so we changed the way we were training. We try to improve and develop every single year what we're doing, reviewing on a weekly basis what we did in the week before. Was it good enough? Do we need to try harder? And so this is some of the training we're doing. Some of these images, I tend to have lots of funny coloured boats for different reasons, just because it's a bit more entertaining. This was an Oakley-inspired creation. But this is training in Seville just before the Olympics. And then we do lots of lab testing. So Monday, just gone, I was in the lab again, in the same lab. Very excited-looking coaches in the background. This is a big Russian guy, the Bear, as he's known. And they test your power outputs on the paddling machines, and they're monitoring how much oxygen you're using, carbon dioxide you're producing, pricking your ear, taking blood. And then plotting that all on a graph, and then working out progression-wise how we're going through. And we also use it to develop sessions. So we can do sessions in a lab, and then we can figure out what we're going to achieve on the water. Are we pushing the VO2 hard enough? Are we producing enough lactate at this heart rate? And then over the course of the winter, we'll look and see, actually, am I getting fitter and fitter? And it's quite a useful tool for us, really. And then you try not to vomit when you're finished. You're producing lactates of like 17 millimoles. And it just hurts a lot. It's very unpleasant. Then you do some other fun things as well. Cross-country skiing at altitude is always good fun. I'm not very good at it, but it certainly works your heart and your lungs pretty hard. Swimming, at the moment through the winter, we're swimming a couple of times every week. Always when you're swimming with your teammates, people lark about a bit at the end of the session, and one of the guys here is trying to come up with a new idea of some training methods, which I don't think are ever going to quite catch on. He's trying to perfect the underwater sit-up and then the underwater press-up. These are not top secret methods, and they've not come into my daily training regime. So we do lots of weights. It's really embarrassing. So I'm one of the weakest guys on the team. You can see the yellow weight in the background there. I had to get taken off when I lay down on the bench. Hideous weight sessions that lasting 2.5 hours. At the end of it, you can't really pick up your arms to eat, and it's really horrible. So a lot of our time, the first meal you get will be like a protein shake or something. That's just about all you can manage to get down you. And then running, always running. My coach seems to find hills wherever he can. At the moment, I do a lot of running in Richmond Park. When I was living in Nottingham, it was running around the campus and finding the hill up from the bottom near the Beeston entrance up towards the Trent building there. And then this is at altitude, up a black ski run. Obviously no snow on it, and we run up and down the black ski run 10 times, which is very unpleasant but great training. And then you get to cycle at altitude as well. But it's a good atmosphere to training with all these good athletes. You've got all these young guys. A lot of the guys I started with are retired, and I'm the only one that's hanging on now. But they kind of keep you young, keep you fresh, and you get to cycle to beautiful places. When you finally reach the top of this mountain and there's a big reservoir there, it's stunning, and I feel very lucky to do it. And then you train in some pretty awful places. This is where I'm going to be going at the end of this month for a couple of months winter training. Once it starts getting colder and windier like it is today, it's good to spend time in a warm weather place. We used to just tough it out all through the winter, and you get ice forms on the sort of pogies over your hands, forms on the spray deck, on the top of your t-shirt. When I had hair, it'd form ice in your hair as well, and really, really unpleasant. So now I jump at the opportunity to go abroad and have some warm weather training. And it's really tough when you finish and you get out and there's a swimming pool and a jacuzzi and a barbecue area and gym just across the other side of the water, and then some nice mountains to run in as well. And then here you've got a bit of other paddling. Once you know how to paddle a boat, you can paddle surf skis, you can do all sorts. And this is money well earned. This picture is what I've called it, because this is a race that we did every Sunday. And I was a bit of a ringer because no one really knew who I was in South Africa. They didn't realise I was an Olympic athlete and what I'd done in the past. So we go here, you pay £5 to enter, and you win £50 if you won. And we almost won every time. But the reason I say it's sort of money well earned is because in the background of the picture is the kelp, and where you get kelp, you get seals, and where you get seals, you get sharks. So I think that's probably what made me paddle a bit faster. And then you have a bit of fun as well. So this is again in Hermanus, up near the World Coast in South Africa, and Christmas Day, kneeboarding. It could be a lot worse. Does anyone know who this is? Quite pertinent to recent times. On Sunday was the big NFL game against 49ers. This is Vince Lombardi, who is a great American football coach, and he has got hundreds of sayings and interesting things that he would come up with. And he had this saying about, the good Lord gave you a body that can stand on anything, it's your mind you have to convince. And this is something a coach is always telling me when I'm hurting in the gym and want to stop. He's just telling me, no, it's just your mind. So, through all that training and everything else, medical school. Dr. Anderson has already highlighted the fact that she's responsible for me being here today. Many, many other people on the way. And the reason I've written Nottingham, please take me, is because I applied to 5 universities, which is what you could do in the time. I got accepted by 4 of them and rejected by Nottingham. So that was without even an interview or anything. So I'd rang them up and I said, please, I need to come to Nottingham University. Can you either reconsider my application or give me a reason why I might not be able to come, and maybe I'll apply again next year. And then they rang me up and said, yep, come for an interview, and came for an interview, and thankfully that was with Dr. Anderson, and I got let in. So that was back in 94, 95, and then once I got my place, I rang them up and said, do you mind if I defer a year? I thought I was really, really pushing my luck, because I wanted to train and try and get to Atlanta Olympics in 96. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out. I didn't make it to Atlanta, which I was pretty gutted about, and ended up in a right misery and didn't watch any of the Atlanta Olympic Games because I was so fed up that I wasn't there. But that kind of spurred me on and went to medical school. And this is the reason why, apart from the medical school, the National Water Sports Centre, which is where I train on a daily basis. So I'll be bombing it across on my bike from the halls of residence, or from Dunkirk, or from Lenton, across the Water Sports Centre, and then back for lectures and sitting in here, trying my best to stay awake, having been up since 5:30, 6 o'clock. And that will work very well. Thankfully, again, fortuitous meeting with Mr. Eddington, who's here today, around Sydney time. I couldn't manage everything that I was doing. I was trying to train, I was trying to do medical school, I was trying to pass exams. I didn't know how to achieve everything. So I had a meeting with Mr. Eddington, who basically went to the faculty office and kind of, I'm not sure how the conversation went, but it ended up that I had 2 years to do my 3rd year at medical school, and 3rd and 4th years. So I managed to spread it over those 2 years, which gave me a 4-month build-up to Sydney Olympics to be a full-time athlete. Before that, I had the Christmas time. I was able to go away, warm weather training for 3 months, come back to medical school for 3 months, and 4 months through to Sydney Olympics. And at that point, I ended up winning a bronze medal, Great Britain's first ever Olympic medal in our sport. It looks like a gold medal there, which is why I like this picture. But I think that's all down to the fact that I had time to train. And when I came back to the medical school, it was good to actually show here, this is something that's as a result of what the medical school's done in their support for me as an athlete. Even though it was a rather unusual thing to do, having that time off made a big, big difference. And then I started to get a bit of a taste for not only winning medals at major championships, but also some of the weird stuff that happens after you win a medal. So the BBC started following me around a bit, and this next video is from East Midlands today, just after the Sydney Olympics, after I'd qualified in 2002, and sort of working part-time at City Hospital. So please ignore all the really bad infection control things like ties, watches, and all the other bits and pieces.
Whilst most of us are in bed, Tim Brabants starts a day in which he could save someone's life.
I'm not sure about that.
There's at least 4 hours training to do each day to keep on track for the next Olympics. How many things do you have to do?
To do this sort of sport, you have to be pretty dedicated. It's hard work. There's a lot of hours on the water, in the gym, out running, swimming, through all weather. No gloves.
Tim's a doctor, but he faced having to give up medicine because of the demands of his sport. Now the City Hospital has found him a job which he can fit around the rest of his life.
Gives you a chance to get away from the water, get away from my side of my life, which is, very, very busy. And it's something I really, really love. My two things I love is medicine and canoeing.
You want to be a full-time?
I wouldn't want to be full-time. I like to keep my brain active, doing a bit of work. And it's a shame after doing sort of 5 or 6 years of medicine study to waste that for 2 years leading up to Athens and full-time having. I think that my brain would go to sleep.
Tim got bronze at the last Olympics. Now with physios and other experts ready to help, he's pushing for gold.
How much does sports science help you?
Well, quite a great deal. Depending on what field of training they're in, the sports science can really help monitor the training and what they're doing and make adjustments to the training program.
A busy day ends with a workout on the weights.
Well, your arms and legs are all like wobbling after by the end of a heavy weight session like tonight. Everything will be slightly wobbling and shaking because you're going to push your muscles to their absolute limit. Even just lifting a mug afterwards for a cup of tea is quite hard work because your arms are so dead. 2 years have gone by since Sydney already, and that went by so fast. And the next 2 years are going to go by fast as well. So we've got to keep working hard at it.
2 years of dedication will end with a sprint for gold. Mark Shardlow, East Midlands Today, Nottingham.
So, lots of hype in the build-up to Athens Olympics. It was all really exciting. I'd won a bronze medal in Sydney. All the expectations were me to improve on that. Expectations on myself, expectations externally and everything else. I was trying to work part-time, train up here, move around the country, doing lots of bits and pieces. Went to Athens and broke the world record in the heat. All looked very, very well, and then finished 5th in the final. So absolute bitter disappointment for me. It was really hard as well. One of my teammates won a bronze there, which was great for us, but it's just really hard when you're the one that's not on the podium anymore. So I thought the next best thing to do was go back to work. Tried working again for another couple of years. Did 18 months full-time as a doctor at City Hospital, and then did the last 6 months in Jersey, and realised I had unfinished business. I still felt I had a gold Olympic medal in me somewhere, but I needed to again readdress that change and what I needed to do to achieve that. So went back into full-time sport February 2006, managed to win the European Championships, came second at the Worlds. This is how we crossed the line, 0.06 of a second between the first 3 boats out of the 9-boat final. Very, very happy with the way the season was progressing. Competing in front of crowds of 30,000 people, this is in Hungary. And then went on 2007 to win the World Championships. And I've got a video of the World Championship final. It's just an abbreviated version, otherwise you've got 3.5 minutes of boringness. But it's probably the much more exciting race to watch than the Olympic race, because of the way that pace is changing. Adam Van Koevelen is a Canadian guy. He's on my right-hand side, and he's my biggest rival and has been my biggest rival throughout the period of 2006, 2007 and 2008. And so this is our sort of ding-dong battle for that gold medal at the World Championships the year before the Olympics. In case anyone was wondering what I said and shouted at the end of that race, it was first, yes. It certainly began with F anyway. And then, so what a great year. Like, I had a year to go to Beijing Olympics, really, really exciting times. Loads more silly BBC things and various bits and pieces and functions and building up to the Olympic Games, very exciting time. I felt like I was arriving at Olympics, that I had my most realistic chance of coming home with the gold. And at the Olympics, it wasn't until afterwards when I came home and watched this race again and listened to Gary Herbert's commentary. And Gary Herbert is this tiny little rowing cox. Have to be careful how I say that. And he was the cox for the Searle brothers in Barcelona. And when I heard the commentary, it really annoyed me because at one point you'll hear it and he says, has Tim gone out too fast? Has he gone too quick? Can he hold on? So I wish he'd just asked me, because my plan was to go out quick. My plan was to hold on, and yes, I was going to last. So this is just a short version of the Olympic final. As you'll see, it's a boring race. My main rival again, the Canadian in the Finding Nemo red and white boat. Do you understand what I mean? It's a relatively boring race when you lead it from start to finish and there's no change. I think it's more exciting for the commentators wondering whether I'd gone out too quick. But you get one of those at the end of one of those races. That's what I've been working for all those years, and I think that's what many people have helped me get to over the years. But it's also what changes your life considerably afterwards. And so I thought I'd put together a few slides about sort of developing as an athlete and as a person, about what I thought was important over the years. So constantly striving for that better self, that St. Francis de Sales saying about trying to improve myself all the time, every session, pushing myself. How hard am I going to push myself? When am I going to push myself? When do I need to rest? What's my 10 out of 10 versus somebody else's 10 out of 10? Talking to Chris Hoy, and he went training with another guy who was a very good cyclist, considered himself to be a good cyclist, came and trained with Chris Hoy, and suddenly realised that what he thought was his 10 out of 10 compared to Chris Hoy's 10 out of 10 was nothing the same. He had a long way to go. And it's the same with me. Am I pushing myself or am I kidding myself? And this is one of the things that we work with my coach to make sure I'm working as hard as I should be. And then the way I apply myself to training. Am I running around doing loads of other things when I should be just resting or eating or sleeping and conducting myself? And that's where it became really important to get that good balance at medical school between training and studying. The outcome versus the process. What was I trying to achieve? I was trying to achieve this, and the process was something I had to balance and manage. And then stepping up to that higher level, we'd never won a gold medal. First of all, we'd never won an Olympic medal in our sport. Then I won one, and then we'd never won a gold medal. So I needed to step up and achieve that. And then you've got relationship with your coach and support staff. I mentioned my coach before, physios, sports scientists, everybody. My coach on the right there, he's coached me now for 16 years, and his wife is a massive supporter. He works full-time in another job, so he coaches me in the morning, goes to work all day, coaches me in the evening, always on the phone, sorting things out, and his wife is a big supporter of that as well. Relationship with fellow athletes is a big part of our sport, probably quite different to many other sports. This is myself, obviously, Kenny Wallace, the Australian, who came third in that 1,000-metre race, and then my big rival from Canada, who, despite a great start in the race, had a terrible race and finished 8th. Yet he's coming over, he's congratulating us, he's really happy for us, and we're all friends. We train together. I'll go to Canada or he'll come to England and we'll stay together and train. So even though they're my biggest rivals, we're also the best friends as well, because we can understand exactly what's going on in each other's heads and what it's like on a day-to-day basis trying to be the best in the world. And then obviously relationship with your family as well. My dad comes out to all the races. My mum died in 2005 with leukemia. But she used to come with my dad to all the races. They've been to, well, my dad's been to the same number of Olympics as I have. And he's always a big supporter, and you can always hear his voice over the rest of the crowd. Sometimes rather embarrassing, the things he says in interviews afterwards when they say, here's Peter Brabants, Tim's father. He's like, it wasn't too bad, was it? And then obviously respect is a big thing for us. Respecting the athletes, respecting the help and the support you get. The Caroline Andersons, the Paul Eddingtons, the medical school staff, everybody who's helped you get there. Yes, I end up standing looking like a Wally on the podium, but there's a lot of people who help you get there. Oops. And then I thought this probably was quite similar to being a doctor as well. You're always trying to push yourself, be better, stepping up to a higher level, good relationship, patients, colleagues, family, and then respect. And so I thought maybe that's why the two allied quite well together, an athlete and a doctor. So basically all these things, to be an athlete, to be a doctor, to be whatever you want to be and successful in life. And I think most importantly, you have to be a little bit crazy as well. You've got to love what you're doing. So getting one of these gold medals, what does it do? It's amazing competing in Beijing. Iconic venues, really great walking path. I never got to go in any of them because we raced in the second week of the Olympics, so we raced right up until the last day. The only place I got to go was into the opening ceremony stadium and also again for the closing ceremony. But what an experience walking into there. 80,000, 90,000 people in the stadium representing your country with your best chance of getting a gold medal. It was particularly nerve-wracking because, like I say, I was at the end of the second week of the Games. By that stage, we'd already won 17 gold medals for Team GB. So the pressure's on for me to sort of deliver my gold medal because I knew without that, then, nothing other than disappointment for me. You meet some interesting people on the way in. With Andy Murray, he didn't hang around long. And then this is where you stay a lot of the time. So this is the Olympic Village. Everything you can see there is part of the Olympic Village. So all the teams, all the best athletes in the world are staying and living here. And you get your washing done in a little porter cabin down at the bottom. And this is like the Team GB blocks. We had 3 blocks of these flats, all full of Team GB athletes. And in the room, you've got things on the wall, little pictures made by children, Union Jack lamps. Yeah, nice sort of environment to be in just for that period of the games. And then a lot of the time when we were actually racing, we were staying out nearer the Olympic venue, which is an hour or so away, in a big hotel. And on the TV that you can see in the background, you're watching all the different competitions, watching everyone winning their medals and getting really motivated. But also for me, it was like you had these 2 great big gold medals on either side of the TV screen, just reminding you what you're there for. And then on the left, covered in an orange blanket, is a big fridge, or freezer rather, full of ice creams. And that was for the heavyweight women's rowers. And you touch that fridge at your peril. And then when I got back to that hotel in the evening, I had 86 new text messages on my phone, so I took a photo of it because I was unlikely to be that popular ever again. Got to fly home first class. Unbeknownst to me, in this very front seat at the bottom right of the picture there, was Princess Anne. So I came up to the front where there was a cabin bit right at the front because it had 2 bits of hand luggage, and putting it in there, and I heard this voice behind me saying, "Well done, Tim." Oh, thank you, Highness. It's not something you expect to see every day or hear every day. And she told me that she was actually out at my race. She'd gone out to Chigny with Gordon Brown, as you do, to go and watch my race. And she said, you know, really enjoyed it. And they didn't hang around afterwards because they had other races to get on. I hope I understood. Yeah, I understood. But that was quite an experience. And then Chris Hoy with his 3 golds making me look silly. And then you go to lots of funny functions and different things, and FA Cup parties with Joe Glanfield, a silver medalist in sailing, Where's Wally running, Kingston Breakfast Run. I just found I came back from the Olympics and I was still fit and strong and keen to compete, but not with any pressure. So I was enjoying all this different stuff I did, with mountain bike racing, tried a bit of rowing. A consultant I worked for in Jersey as well was a big rower, transatlantic rower. And he rang me up and asked me, did I want to do the Sark to Jersey race? He said, it's only 2 hours, right? And he said, you can just start the race just by blowing the horn, or you can take part. And for me, offering me a challenge like taking part in the race rather than just starting it was like a red rag to a bull. So this is us taking part in this Sark to Jersey race. It was 2 hours of absolute pain. And I had the blisters to prove it as well. This is about a week later. And I was back at work after this, and every time you rub the Alco gel in your hands and these blisters, it hurt. And then doing other silly things, and surfing and flying and surf ski racing. Again, another slide about, these are the 3 medalists from the 1,000 metres in Beijing. The middle guy was a Norwegian defending Olympic champion from 2004, Kenny Wallace, Australia, and myself, in Dubai, when we did a surf ski race for a bit of fun and for a charity thing, and then we go and ski there as well. More surf ski racing. And then, actually, it's a bit embarrassing because I'm wearing the same suit and the same shirt that I am in that picture. It has been washed since. But you get invited to funny things. I got invited to the premiere of the Duchess movie, and I got to the after party afterwards, and they introduced me to Keira Knightley, and it was just after the Olympics, so she was really excited. She'd never seen an Olympic gold medal before, and she's holding the medal, and then all the paparazzi people taking photos, and this appeared in the London paper the next day. So then I had another barrage of text messages from people saying, "You little bugger, how the hell do you get a photograph with Keira Knightley?" But yeah, and I like the title, "Amazing What a Gold Medal Can Do." But I did have to lie on that occasion because she asked me, did I enjoy the movie? And then all the gold medalists got given an executive club gold card, so you don't have to buy lots of flights, but it means I can go in the first class lounge and all this sort of thing. And it's really nice because you can take a guest. So now when we travel out on a team as part of British Airways, everyone's my friend. Because everyone wants to be my guest into the first class lounge before we fly places. And then you go to lots of dinners and things and sit on tables with different companies for British Olympic Association dinners or Sports Aid Foundation and these sort of things. And I was on a table with a coffee company, Nespresso. And we're talking about coffee and use of caffeine as a stimulant for training and everything, and drinking at work, and talking also about their Nespresso machines. And about a week later, this Nespresso coffee machine arrived, like 200 capsules of coffee. And I thought, that's quite handy. And then a couple of weeks later, I was on the Weetabix table, and talking about cereal, and they asked me what cereal do I eat. Clearly, that day, I eat Weetabix. And now I have an endless supply of Weetabix. I just ring them up every time I want some more, and they just give me boxes and boxes of Weetabix. I can't even give the stuff away. Then I was on the Cadbury's table, This is an absolute true story. Talking about whisper bars, because they'd come back into circulation, and I was saying as a youngster we never really ever had chocolate, and we'd only have chocolate when we went camping as a family, which is our family holidays, and we'd stop at the garage to get petrol, and my dad would get me a whisper bar. And lo and behold, a week later arrived 200 whisper bars, which got distributed very quickly to many people. And it was on the Lamborghini table. No, that's not true. This is the manufacturer of our boats. It's a very successful company, and so this is his car. So after the Olympics, had a big party over in Portugal. He paid for all the athletes who won medals in Beijing, who paddle his boats, to come over there and let us drive his car around a track, which was quite exciting. And then after all that fun and things, I thought I'd go back to work. So I came back, again, very lucky to meet the right people. Mr. Esberger in A&E department here, talked to him about how do I get back into medicine, what do I need to do. Dr. Colshaw as well got me back into doing a bit of acute medicine, a bit of A&E medicine, supervised stuff, unpaid for a bit, just to try and get my hand back in and make sure I was safe to practice medicine. And it worked out really, really well. And yeah, thankfully I started doing locums and more. Took myself off, did an ALS course, did an ATLS course as well, and then started applying for jobs. And thankfully, again, my CV landed on the right people's desks, and I managed to get work back here in Nottingham at Queen's. So I worked here for another 18 months. I did some really fun stuff. This was at Alton Park, doing trackside doctoring, and also worked at MotoGP at Donington Park, which is a lot of fun. Not so fun when they fall off, because they're normally a bit sore, but it's quite exciting watching MotoGP trackside. And then we got awarded an MBE by the Queen. So every gold medalist got awarded an MBE, which was a very, very special moment to go back to Buckingham Palace. And the Queen, she said a few words to you. The idea is they tell you all about how you go up there, you turn, you walk forwards. She speaks to you, pins a thing on, and when she offers to shake your hand, that's it, conversation over. And then you're supposed to take a few steps back, then turn, then walk away. I was so nervous at this stage. So first of all, she asked me had I been to the palace before, and I said, yes, ma'am, I was here yesterday. Because I'd been to a sports medicine lunch that was hosted by Prince Philip the evening before. And she said, oh, really? I said, yes, your husband hosted a lovely lunch here yesterday that I was at. So she thought that was quite funny and just asked me, she gets told a bit about you beforehand. I wasn't that full of myself to think she recognised me, but she said, are you going back to work as a doctor now? I said, yes, ma'am. And then offers a hand, shake it, and I go to turn straight away and then sort of do a half turn, half step back and turn. And my sisters were there and my father, and they never once to miss a mistake that I make, and they'll always put me up on it. So I knew the first thing they'd say to me was, oh, you made a mess up of that, didn't you? Turn, step back, turn. So that was a nerve-wracking time. And then, so really, what is it about? What motivates me? I'm talking about being a better self, all these sorts of things we talked about. Enjoying the journey is the thing for me that's been the most fun part of it. It's been really, really tough at times. So many ups and downs in Athens, ups and downs in medicine and trying to fit it all in and work. And now being a doctor with seniors who are far younger than me is always quite difficult. But I think, this has been worth it. This has been worth it a lot, and I owe a lot to the people that have helped me along the way. I was going to show another video, but I'm going to skip that one because it's just more slow motion stuff that my coach sent me, and it's the sort of things that motivate me. There's a lot of these videos that you watch of you racing and succeeding and doing well, and you kind of detach yourself from the fact that it's you in the video and you're just watching somebody racing, and it still gives me goosebumps now when I watch my race and when I think about performing and doing well. So then I had this lovely logo that I was working under for a period of time, and London was looming. I'd got what I wanted, achieved everything I'd hoped to achieve, and thought I was going to be a full-time doctor for and ever then. And then this logo came along. And love it or loathe it, I felt like I couldn't be running around a hospital as much as I love being a doctor, and watching bits and pieces of the Olympics on TV and not being part of it. Even though I'm losing my hair rapidly, I thought it was important to at least give it one last chance, and I felt like I've got a really good chance to go to London Olympics, represent Great Britain, and come back with another gold medal. So now it's sort of fully back into training, 3-4 times every day. We work on a 2-week cycle, so I have one day off every 2 weeks. So now I haven't got another day off until a week on Sunday. But it's worth it because I love the training. I love being outdoors. The whole reason I fell in love with the sport in the first place was being on the river, seeing the ducks, the swans, the fish, and everything to do with being outside on the water. And even now, just the other day in the water, it's a beautiful morning. It's 4 degrees, so it's particularly cold, but the sun was rising. And just paddling along, 2 swans came along, just took off just like alongside, just seeing them slowly taking off. And you're thinking, actually, this is fantastic. This is a really good sport to be in and to train for. And then it gets ruined by my coach telling me I had sort of 10 seconds before the start of the next effort, and then you're all flat out again on the water. And that's my sort of daily bread and butter now. So the last thing is another quote by this Vince Lombardi. The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, regardless of their chosen field of endeavour. So my aim is to excel, hopefully, in my sport again, and then eventually as a doctor in the medical profession. So thank you very much for listening, and if anyone has any questions, you go ahead. Questions aren't obligatory, but shout them out. Oh, there's a question at the back. That's like a journalist question. What impact does the commitment to my sport have on relationships? I mean, it's obviously tough, but it's what you do, it's what you live and breathe, it's what makes you you. So the people that you have relationships with are the people that understand that and are part of that and support you in that as well. So it's the same, it's important to maintain every bit of your life. But the slides I showed at the 40th anniversary thing, I had a little pictogram with bubbles with all the areas of my life, from finances, work, career, and in the centre was what was important, the most important thing at the time. So one would be becoming a doctor, and then the second one would be being Olympic champion, and then the size of the other bubbles around it changed. So training was huge, and everything else just had to balance around it, and then eventually being a doctor, medicine was huge, and like that. So you balance everything around, and it's worth the balance really, and it's worked out very well so far.
What's your worst injury?
My worst injury, we're a very low impact sport, so we're very lucky injury-wise, we're fairly injury-free. Nick Pearce, the guy with the cricket team, he was our team doctor for a long time as well, so he saw a lot of us. So up until recently, my worst injury was a broken toe, which was a silly injury the night before I was going away to Florida on a training camp. I just stubbed it on the stairs on the way up to bed that night. It broke my 5th metatarsal in 3 places, and just had to delay my flight by a day. It was weird. I could walk by putting a bit of pressure on it. It was really hard to walk down to the boat. Once I was in the boat, I was fine. So I had a great training camp in the end, just couldn't run. And then 2 weeks before Europeans, this year, I slipped a disc, which wasn't ideal. I didn't know what I'd done before the Europeans. I was just in a lot of pain. When I got in the boat, it took me about 10 or 15 minutes before I could actually start to rotate and paddle properly in the boat again. Really struggled through racing and was on lots of painkillers, and then we got back, had an MRI, and it showed that I'd slipped my L4-5 disc, come out and up into the spinal canal, and I was like, oh, that's what's causing all the pain. So then it was a kind of, that's my worst injury so far, but thankfully I had the right people on board to fix it very, very quickly. Mr. Lemberger.
Tim, brilliant Tim. And of course, probably the audience don't know that you were in fact a urology houseman, and we did help to make you what you are today.
It definitely did. I think urology is one of those careers that, plumbing, isn't it?
not far short of. I mean, apart from urology, all other medical careers must be jolly dull to you, mustn't they, from now on?
I've been one of those people, I've always been interested in absolutely everything. My father was an engineer, my sister went on to do engineering, the other sister went on to do sociology, my mother was into music. So throughout my career in medicine, I've been interested in everything. It frustrates my wife massively because wherever I go, I'll be talking to people about what they do and how they do it. When I was a youngster, the fairground, the local field we had there had a fairground on with a little steam train on it, and I'd be spending hours talking to the guy about the steam train. How did it work? What did this do? What did that do? What happens if I push this? And it's the same in medicine. I think at the moment I'm wanting to specialise in A&E, and that's what I love because it's got a bit of everything. I see some of every part of medicine in an A&E department. I'm not patient enough to be a GP, and I think that's why A&E ticks the boxes for me a lot. And obviously my urology experience, like I was saying to you earlier. If I was clever enough, I would have been a urologist.
Tim, thank you very much. Sir Steve Redgrave said in his penultimate Olympics, if you see me in a boat again, shoot me. Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, you feel like that a lot of times, actually. And in the build-up to Beijing, it was so hard, the training we're doing, trying to fit everything in. Every really horrible, hard session where things weren't going right, I was telling myself, right, instill that in your mind, how horrible this is, because after Beijing, you'll never have to do it again. And then as soon as you cross that line, you won a gold medal, it's like, this is brilliant. I'll need to do it again and again and again. And I think it's the same with all athletes, really. At the moment, you think, I can't do another 4 years of this sort of training. And having that balance between going back to work for 18 months, readdressing my career for after sport, knowing that I've got a career that I love and I'm going to be able to apply myself 100% to the same as I would my training, actually makes training a lot easier. So I think for him, they train much the same way, the rowers and ourselves. And I think you can understand why he says that, but then you can also understand why he was back in a boat soon after.
He did, of course, win his gold medal, which was the important thing.
And he did, of course. I'm hoping to follow in those sort of footsteps. Brilliant. I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Before we just do that, did anyone recognise the music at the beginning when we had the rotating slides? There was some music. Yes, who said that? Ah, good. Oh, Nick, you're always good. Good. You probably play that, do you, Peter? Well, it was for you as well as for Tim. But I would like to ask somebody who knows you well and you know well, Paul Eddington, to do a vote of thanks. And then we've got another celebration to do with money.
Tim, is that on? Tim, you've been very busy recently up in Nottingham. I gather you've been at a sportsman's dinner, and it was lovely hearing you at the 40th anniversary the other day. You've given us a brilliant talk tonight. It's been fascinating. It's been fascinating seeing you from that determined 10-year-old who suddenly started canoeing or kayaking then, through to your determination to get into medical school. Quite clearly you were very focused. You didn't have the advantage of lots of sport at your own school. You were turned down initially by Nottingham. Jolly lucky to come up against a lady on the admissions committee who obviously had took to handsome young men in those days. We've heard these rumours about it, but it's nice to actually hear it's been proven. And then to come through medical school, be very determined to want to take some time out. And as somebody who's enjoyed sport and over the years, and particularly as a student, I was always concerned that in Nottingham there was this reluctance to let people play as much sport as they'd have liked to have done so. When we were at medical school, we were regarded as being rather dull if you were in the medical school on a Wednesday afternoon, but we couldn't quite convince them to do that here in Nottingham. Anyway, it was great that you could take time out and go off and compete and get your medal in Sydney. You then had your disappointments of the next Olympics in Athens, and then that tremendous fight back to do so well in Beijing. And watching that video today, I was even more excited tonight, I think, than I was at the time. I remember Jane's always getting at me for shouting too loud in the house on these occasions, but it was tremendously exciting. You've given us a fascinating talk, some wonderful pictures and some wonderful videos, and congratulations for making everything work so well. There were no faults tonight. What I'd just like to say, Tim, is it's been a pleasure knowing you over these years, and what's delightful is to see you really haven't changed, apart from losing a bit of hair. You're still modest, and I think that's a great advert, and all I would say, Nottingham can be very, very proud of you. Delighted to have you here tonight, and just ask everyone to join me in saying thank you for a wonderful evening.